Shalom. My hair is insane. I know. I just got in from work. It's been like a crazy Saturday night, and I had it up in a clip and it looked bad, and so I thought I'd take it down, but it's even crazier. It's really here. It's all my. I feel like sometimes I think it looks like a wig, but it's not. It's my real hair, but it just looks this insane. Yeah, it was crazy tonight at the restaurant. We were so busy. And it just was like we kept just being busier. And I had a 5 table section, but like none of my reservations were gonna be there until like starting at 6:30. But then they were like gonna be seated every 15 minutes, which seems okay. But then like inevitably people show up late or they trickle in and only a couple of them sit down at a time, and then like while they're sort of like trickling in, like you have other tables sitting down, and then like if people start asking you questions before you're ready, it's like, oh gosh, you're really like, just let the server lead you, okay? Like we need to come to you and let you know that everything's okay and that you've been seen and give you water, right? And then we may try to get away from you very fast, and that's probably because the front door wants to sit you before you get irritated that you've had to wait. But the thing is that you might have to wait once you get to the table. So it's like, who are you going to be mad at more? Like I always think like just keep them up front with a drink from the bar or something for a minute, so I can get over there and like give people the service that they need and they want and they deserve. So it just was like impossible tonight. It was just like every time like I got my first table, which was like a party of like 6 or 7 people, and they kind of trickled in, and so they always had a lot of questions every time I came back to the table, which I'm like trying to be obliging and answer. But they weren't really ready for me, and so I kept being like, do you want a couple more minutes to decide? And then they kept talking amongst themselves, and like, you've trapped me there at this point, and now all my other tables are going down, and I have to go through this process with them. And every single table, like, needed me to guide them through everything and be excited for them and answer so many, like, questions. And the night started off wrong because there's been a lot of pressure lately to like, know the menu inside out, or like be ready to feature in lineup, which means if they call on you and they're like, tell me about the whatever dish, it's like you have to like describe it the way you would to your table, but also like you're doing it to your bosses who are like deciding whether or not you're going to be cut from the floor and sent home if there's like too many people on the schedule. So it's like, oh my gosh, it's like the stakes are high, and we've been so nervous lately, and today instead of like featuring, they just like handed out these pop quizzes, and I knew that like I needed to like look more into the wine list and our like cocktail menu, but like what you guys don't understand is that like I've got like a full day like every day until it's time to get like stop and get ready for work. And so I spend a lot of time just trying to like keep like my uniforms maintained and just like being prepared to go in, and I do my best to like read and like study the menu and like know the wine and stuff, but am I supposed to go Google 50 wines and like write down the tasting notes, which I've tried to do before, but they always are like rotating in and out, but then like memorize them and always remember them just in case? It's hard. And it's like, I mean, like, can we just like play this a little more by ear? So anyway, tonight was insane, and I had to perform the entire menu to everybody and know everything about every drink. And oh yeah, so the quiz that we had to take at the beginning of the shift, I was so upset because I'm prepared and I stay prepared, but like if I'm caught off guard in a moment that makes me feel trauma response, I'm probably gonna, instead of fight and flight, I'm gonna freeze, at least in the work environment. And when I'm afraid that I'm trying to like make sure I keep my job, like the slightest little bit of that goes wrong is like, oh, everything's at stake. And so I can't remember things that I normally know, or like I'll get confused, or I won't be able to talk or explain myself. And so we had to take this quiz, and I thought I did fairly well on it, but like the time was ticking and I was getting a little panicked. And so I don't know, after the fact, I realized that like a bunch of the questions I knew the answers to, but I got wrong because like I either misread the question or I like twisted it around in my head. Like I was like, there was something that was like, oh, name, 3 dairy-free dish, entrees or whatever. And I named 2 that were like, were dairy free. But then I put one that did have butter, and I wrote it down because I'm obsessing in my mind, going, no, the short rib has butter. It has dairy in it, and I'm just like not thinking because I'm rushed. And then like I write that one down instead of the other that I meant to write, and I'm like, no. I always have my menu ready with like all of the like allergy notes and everything, and still it's just not enough. So tonight it was just insane. Like from start to finish, I was out of breath from 6:30 until 10:30 and like dripping sweat. And there was one of the tables at the end was really upset because they waited a long time to get seated, and I was just like, gosh, I'm so sorry. But like, really, honestly, it's like Nashville on a Saturday night. It's like this everywhere. Like it's been like this since the 80s, before it was busy, but they came in from out of town. I was just like, I'm so sorry. But they were so upset. So they needed a lot of nurturing back to a good time. And they were also very, very thirsty people. And I was trying to keep them watered. And I had some other tables that needed service too. So I forgot to put an order in for this one table. I mean, and it was like a long time. And I was like, why isn't this coming out? I'm like, oh, fuck, I never read it. So I did. I went and told the girls. I was like, I'm so sorry. I have something to tell you. And they were really understanding. So I'm thanking Jesus for that one because I prayed. I always say my prayers. And I pray over my tables and I pray over my section. Hopefully the blessings spill out to everyone. But enough about the night and our opening monologue and my explanation for why I look insane. And the reason why that is relevant is because, you guys, today's portion of our study is called The Inner and the Outer. And my outer is reflecting the chaos on my inner for the whole night. I had like all kinds of chaos going on inside, and I look like I've been like swept up in a whirlwind, and that's basically what it's been like. And you might ask, like, what are you even talking about, Liz? You're getting ahead of yourself. I know, I'm still insane from work. Saturday nights, we do our late night after midnight study of the Nag Hammadi scriptures. And the reason why we're doing the Nag Hammadi scriptures is because I was just really interested in learning about them and just reading them. And I don't know, I just felt so much intrigue. And I didn't know when I was going to have time to do this because of all that I just explained. And, life and all the rest of the things that I do to just be a human being. So I thought maybe I can make that one of our weekly, like one of our daily videos for the week. And I decided to do it on Saturday night because we're kind of in between Shabbat and the Sabbath for Sunday. And midnight is a liminal space. And the veil is thin, and the sages, especially the Hebrew mystic sages, believed that when you study after midnight, you are opening yourself to so much more understanding and blessing to come through from that study for a couple of reasons. One, because we are in this liminal space between the end of one day and the beginning of the next, and so that is a portal of powerful energy there. And 2, because we are tired and it's past our bedtime and we're pushing ourselves out of our comfort zone in order to receive for the sake of sharing and rise above the need to receive for the self alone, or to comfort the flesh, or to seek instant gratification by just like saying, hey, I'm going to throw in the towel and just call it a night, right? So we're pushing through and we're breaking the flesh and the spirit of Eucharist in sacrifice. And that sacrifice opens up and breaks open all of this energy and potential to be used in wisdom and transformation, and hopefully growing through what we're learning and applying it to our lives and actually really doing something with it and using it practically to elevate. And so here we are. I'm not a theologian. I am just interested in reading this with you guys and sharing it together. So I am going to read this poorly, maybe twice, and then we'll go back and unpack it a little by little. It should also be noted that people have different feelings about the additional gospels that did not make it into the canonical collection. But I enjoy reading them, and I always find that there's some kind of like deep message that comes through that has like a core truth that resonates with me, that feels familiar, like I already remember it anyway. You know, like the access to the information that our souls and our spirits have that is beyond maybe our conscious rational knowledge or our experience in this lifetime. I think we remember lifetimes before, and everything that we're connected to, you know, as a collective consciousness, because we are all connected to some degree. We are all part of one whole, and so we have access to all of the conscious information that humankind has ever had and shared. It's just tuning into it. And it takes quietness and stillness and listening. Okay, so tonight's segment, we are reading the Gospel of Philip. And tonight our segment is called The Inner and the Outer. And in some of these Gospels, there's portions missing because of the damage done to the scrolls and things, but I think that we don't have any missing segments here. I think we're good. For this reason, he said, I have come to make the lower like the upper, and the outer like the inner, and to unite them in that place. He spoke here in symbols and images. Those who say there is a heavenly person and one that is higher are wrong, for they call the visible heavenly person lower, and the one to whom the hidden realm belongs higher. It would be better for them to speak of the inner and the outermost, for the Master called corruption the outermost darkness, and there is nothing outside of it. He said, my Father who is in secret, he said, my Father who is in secret. Oh, he said, or like he would say, make reference to my Father who is in secret. He said, go into your room, shut the door behind you, and pray to your Father who is in secret. That is the one who is innermost. What is innermost is the fullness, and there is nothing further within. And this is what they call uppermost. I was just going to peek at the footnotes really fast. If he again becomes complete. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, which one is that? Oh, it's in a different segment. Never mind, does not apply. Okay, footnotes are not useful. Okay, I'm going to read this once through again because that was a little choppy. And I believe this is Philip like looking back and discussing like things that Christ would say, right? That's the context here. For this reason, he said, I have come to make the lower like the upper, and the outer like the inner, and to unite them in that place. He spoke here in symbols and images. Those who say there is a heavenly person and one that is higher are wrong. For they call the visible heavenly person lower, and the one to whom the hidden realm belongs higher. It would be better for them to speak of the inner, the outer, and the outermost. For the master called corruption the outermost darkness, and there is nothing outside it. He said, my Father who is in secret, he said, go into your room, shut the door behind you, and pray to your Father who is in secret. That is the one who is innermost. What is innermost is the fullness, and there is nothing further within. And this is what they call uppermost. Cool. So what's interesting about picking out this segment today is that it really aligns, and we discussed this in the video yesterday, with a particular episode of the Robcast. It's his most recent episode. This is Rob Bell's podcast called the Robcast. I would highly suggest going and listening to it. It's about 50 minutes or so. But he's doing an interview with his friend Kristen Hange, I think is her name, and she is a director, but she's a master in storytelling. And she was breaking down the hero's journey versus the heroine's journey. And, you know, there hasn't been a lot of study about the heroine's journey, but she has devoted a lot of her focus in her career to the heroine's journey. And she was just basically breaking down the structure, the paradigms of each one. And so the hero's journey is like the metaphor of the divine masculine journey in this life, which is the outer world, our physical life, the way that we express ourselves and the way that we, you know, have physical cause and react in life. Physical cause and effect in life is what I meant to say. It's the outer expression of ourselves. It's the way that we live. It's what we want from life. It's our outer goals. You know, physical material world 3D stuff. But the heroine's journey is almost like the subplot of the movie, whereas the hero's journey is all the things that we can see, smell, and touch about the character. You know, we're watching their life play out, all the actions they're taking, and, you know, the things that they're confronting, and the ways that they're changing their way that they do things, right? But the subplot of the character has to do with usually their emotional and spiritual and soul growth through the process of the story. How is their outer experience changing them? And how are they growing through the things that they are facing within the story that we see in the movie, right? So the inner versus the outer. The thing is, we're always going through both of those things at the same time, and one is always informing the other. Mostly, the core, the root starts with the inner. The inner is what influences what the outer is going to look like, because the outer is just showing us what is going on the inside, because that's what's important. And so we need to have our focus there and do the work on the inside so that the outside can flourish as well. We can use our sheer will to sort of create a stable outer world, but unless our interior landscape is also stable, the facade will crack and chaos will still happen. So just some thoughts right off the top of my head. So Jesus came to make the lower like the upper and the outer like the inner. So he came to the physical existence to make the lower realm like the upper realm, meaning the physical world, the world of form and materialism, is the only way that the divine can experience and express the divine self, right? So the divine is the upper realm. It's the higher consciousness, the realm of higher consciousness. It's not like a physical location higher up. And it's not to say, I won't say that. Let's just say this. Yeah, it's a world of higher consciousness and less physicalness, right? So all of the governing forces of the universe are within that upper realm, and they all have to come together in this like marriage and temperance and mixed together and alchemized and filtered and processed through until they all are in unity and expressed and manifested in the physical world, right? So when Christ says, I have come to make the lower like the upper, in order for us to shed the ego layers and to have more fulfillment in this life and to minimize the chaos that we are experiencing and to align ourselves with the blessings that we want to manifest in the fulfillment, in order to attain the light, because the light contains all the fulfillment, all the satisfaction. It's not the material things that we reach after that we think are the shiny objects. What's really shining is the radiance of the light, the divine light within the things that we think that we're grasping for, something to pacify us. But really what we want is that connection with the light. That's what we're missing. That's the deepest satisfaction that we're reaching for. And that light does dwell within the cake or the cigarette or, even like the glass of wine, or even within the drug, or within that tempting, person that you want to date or whatever. Like those things contain the light, and we reach for them thinking that we want the thing, but really we want the light that is expressed through the thing. And so when we realize that it's really the light that we want, we're less tempted to short circuit and reach for things out of turn that really aren't ours, or aren't really in alignment with our core desire or what's in affinity with us, right? In order to be in a vibrational alignment with anything, we have to be in affinity with that, right? So what we want is to be in vibrational alignment with the cosmic harmony of all that is. That puts us in that cosmic flow with the universe. And in order to do that, we have to have affinity with the light, and we have to become more and more like the light, which is making the lower like the upper. So Christ came here there was a lot of layers of things going on. There was some metaphysical things happening on the energetic and spiritual realms, of him being here, raising the consciousness through his presence, and also being sacrificed later. Metaphysical layers going on there. But just as him bringing Christ consciousness as a concept, as a practice, as wisdom to give to people, this was the path of Christianity. That's what Christ wanted to give to the world, was a path to overcoming our demons that torment us, because we haven't sort of self-realized them yet. We haven't made them whole. We haven't integrated those parts of our shadow. So he gave us a way to do that. But the only way to really talk about the things and the concepts that he was trying to give us was to do it through parable and symbolism, and to plant seeds that would grow over time, and not just tell someone like the clanging of the clashing clanging gongs or whatever that verse says. That's abrupt and it doesn't make any sense. It's just a bunch of nonsense, right? But when he plants the seed in these metaphors and these poetic ways of like discussing these things that are too big to come at straightforward, it leaves an impression it talks about Christ coming in like a sweet smell or whatever, or influencing the whole. I can't remember what the verse is, but there is some reference to the Holy Spirit or Christ being like a an intoxicating smell that you want to attract someone with like an enticingness that they're like, oh, that's curious. I want to, let's take another breath of that. There's so many different dimensions there that I want to pick up. I mean, think about when you smell a perfume and you can start to pick up on the different notes and you're like, ooh, I want to smell that again. And so it becomes even more of it is coming to my consciousness, and it grows, and you begin to like, your nose becomes smarter, right? When you begin to become an intelligent smeller. Same for consciousness and realization. So Christ would, try to explain things to people in ways that would plant the seeds of their understanding when they would have that moment of awakening, right? It takes that seed to be planted for that to be possible. And even if someone tells you literally word for word exactly what they're trying to say and what they mean, if the seed isn't planted in a fertile soil, like in a moment where you're ready to hear it, and like it all lines up, and you really it really makes sense, then you won't get it. The timing won't be right. So hold on, I think I came unplugged. I'm in low power mode. I think I'm like using more power than I'm generating back into my phone. Yeah, so he wanted to make the lower like the upper. So he was giving us a path to make ourselves more like the light by shedding our darkness, by shedding the dense layers that keep us chained to the material illusions, right? So that's, shedding our ego, shedding our fears, shedding our prejudices, shedding our bitterness or disappointments or anger or assumptions or expectations, shedding our weaknesses and our shadow, and shedding our selfish nature or the nature that we have to overgive and not be able to set a firm boundary in a healthy way. So there's always this work that we're doing of peeling these layers off that are just keeping us under the impression or the illusion that we're separate from the light at all. It's radiating from within us, and we live inside of it, and it's all around us. So that is part of the process of shedding the lower, the physicalness, the materialness of it all, and being more awakened to the magnificence and the glory of all that lies outside of this like limited like husk, this temporary rotting, husk with a shelf life. Everything and in this like physical plane has a shelf life. It's not eternal, it's fleeting. So it is lesser in a way, because it hasn't overcome or transcended death or the illusion of death. The physical body dies away for us, but our spirit and our soul continue. There is no death for our spirit and soul. So that was something that we were going to come to and talk about, but I think it's important anyway. I haven't really stuck to the sentence by sentence. I was just going off waxing rhapsodic, but it's all in this anyway. Okay, so the upper and lower, and the outer and the inner, and to unite them in that place. And so the outer and the inner, okay, so the upper and lower, the upper is the inner and the outer is the lower. We need to have a whole video series on just talking about the tree of life and that glyph, because there's so much of it that could be explained here, but I think it would just be confusing now without it. So let's just say that the The upper worlds are related to all of that interior non-physical world, all of the things going on within our spirit, within our soul, and that translates into the work that we have to do to apply our wisdom and the consciousness that we're attaining to our thought realm and our emotional realm. Those are the realms that we need to work on and heal, because they're affecting us. They're affecting the rest of our lives. The inner world is affecting the rest of our lives. We start thinking thoughts, and then the thoughts start making us feel things. And are the thoughts even real? Do we have any control over that? Have we built self-mastery over our mental landscape? Have we claimed ourselves sovereign over that and made that our own dominion? And it's like you can choose your thoughts. You can actually choose to take a step back and clear your mind. And it's maybe not easy at first, but it is a practice, and it's something that we have the choice to do or not do. But it can be done. It just takes practice. It takes willingness. It takes the will to do it. Making the upper and lower and the outer, like the inner, and uniting them in that place. That's also talking about the divine marriage of the masculine and feminine. So when you finally are able to integrate that balanced inner realm, that's like the peaceful inner landscape where you have self-control, you have emotion and passion that you're comfortable with, but they don't control all your decisions. You're not reactive to them. You observe your thoughts without judging them or getting lost in them or grasping onto them like they're the truth and nothing but the truth, right? So when you marry all that inner world and you're able to then take action in your outer world in a way that's aligned with how you feel, your integrity, your truth, the way that you, what you believe to be in alignment with the cosmic ultimate truth of the light, right? You can start taking action in your outer realm and organizing your life and leading your life and making your mundane daily decisions in a way that reflects what you value spiritually, what you value on a soul level, what's truly authentic to your core, and not just, what are the norms of society, what people expect of you, So marrying the masculine and the feminine. Also, I think one thing that is true about the marriage of the masculine and the feminine is when we can take the intuition and the inner guidance of the feminine power and then apply that to our actions and decisions in our outer world as well, without having it to have to make logical sense, right? We're trans-rational, and there's pre-rational, then there's rational, then there's we have transcended the need for rational because you have a certainty in the creator and you've witnessed the fact that the universe works in mysterious ways, right? We don't have to understand how all the pieces connect. Those who say there is a heavenly person and one that is higher are wrong, for they call the visible heavenly person lower, and the one to whom the hidden realm belongs higher. It would be better for them to speak of the inner, the outer, and the outermost. For the master called corruption the outermost darkness, and there is nothing outside of it. For the master called corruption the outermost darkness. Now the outer... So the corruption here is our vulnerability to death, right? It's the fact that the flesh breaks down and that we as bodies die, right? That's the corruption. Because the spirit, the perfection of spirit is eternal and it's unchanging and it's everlasting life. So we call, for the master called corruption, the outermost darkness. And I think what that means is the outermost is the physical. It's the material. The outermost is the outermost darkness. There's two realities Two truths are happening to me at the same time. So the outermost of the physical realm is like on the edge of existence, where like we're outside of the multiverse. We're outside of what holds the multiverse at this point. Beyond physical beingness, like all of reality as we know it, there is a non-physical realm, or realms actually, many realms, right? And that is where, and then beyond that, there's like this sea of endless pure light where all the potential of everything is like festering in like absolute like dynamic explosion of like radiance. All of that pushes through this condensed singular point called the primordial point. And that is when, like, on the other side of that is when, like, the Big Bang happened from the singularity. That is, like, the wall between non-existence and existence, right? The endless light. But what's on the other side of endless light, and so this is just, like, abstract potential and, like, energy before it's even condensed into, like, cellular particle energy, right? On the other side of that, there's like this sea of eternal blackness, and it's non-beingness. It's like unbeing. It's not. It's the not. It's the nothing. It is nothingness. But like having not been, never at all. It is unbeingness. The essence of it. So the inherent nature of beingness requires us to have some kind of physicality, or even at the very least, in the very lowest or like the very thinnest of our density, we're a spirit, we're light, we're a soul, and we become denser and more fleshy as we become more material and expressed as physical bodies, right? And so if the physical body is temporary and it's not eternal, then in a way, it's not the truth. It's not the full truth, right? It's not the wholeness of it all, right? And so that is what makes this world corrupt. That's why we have the ego, and there's a process here, and there's the separation of time and space where we can't just instantly manifest things, which is a blessing, because then we could instantly manifest like chaos as well. And it does feel that way sometimes. Chaos. So, so that's why the master called corruption the outermost darkness, because the outer world is the physical, the material, but then even on the outer world, it is literal darkness, right? Things are always like layering and mirroring and like representing like in these like metaphors, but that are true. It's meta for you. Okay. And there is nothing outside of it. He said, my Father who is in secret, he said. So there's ways to speak about God that's more poetic than just God. It's like the most unattractive word. And sometimes there's phrases that the mystics have adopted. And one of them is the innermost concealed. And that is the most abstract that God gets, that's like we can't even begin to fathom, because our consciousness literally cannot go there. Like even if we were like an ascended master, like we can't go there. So then the innermost concealed is the most sacred, the most holy, the most of everything. It's the wholeness of existence. And it's beyond our grasp. It's beyond our reach. So that is the innermost. It is behind these veils of understanding that we can't break through. And so that is where the holiest and the most true and the most real is. So go, he said, my Father who is in secret, the most concealed, the most unfathomable. Go into your room, shut the door behind you, and pray to your Father who is in secret. So go into your room means turn inward. Like literally, physically, go be alone. disconnect from other people's energy and influence. We can feel it, we can sense it, right? Go where you can get the most quiet, the most alone, the most out of anyone's energetic influence or distraction, and turn inward. And let yourself go into a trance. And that's when the innermost realizations come forward, and the innermost revelation and insight and fulfillment and satisfaction and guidance, where you have these spiritual experiences where you feel the presence, and then you know you're not alone anymore, and you know you're taken care of. That is the one who is innermost. What is innermost is the fullness, and there is nothing further within. And this is what they call uppermost. All the fulfillment is there. That's the fullness. That's the wholeness of it all. The divine marriage, never separate, all in unity, full consciousness, pure light, pure fulfillment in full completion. And when we connect with that light, we start feeling more and more of it. And there's an intelligence that starts building up where you, I don't know, it's like a telepathic connection to this presence of this force. And it feeds you and it nurtures you and it speaks to you. And it gives you messages and it gives you guidance and it gives you direction and it gives you comfort and healing and whatnot. And challenges. Don't forget those. That which does not kill us makes us eternal. All right, y'all. I feel like it rained enough yesterday where I may not have to water my garden, and I could just eat and take a shower, and wind down, and watch Stranger Things because it's the best. Beatlemania. Thanks for sticking with me. I'm crazy. Maybe I'll be less crazy tomorrow. All right, you guys. Much love. Bye.